I usually pick a couple of boys, usually the lads in the front row, and ask them, why do you think they target boys? Why? And this is the number one answer I get.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and this is Well, Hello Anxiety. In a world that often moves too fast, we're here to pause, breathe, and understand anxiety together. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share honest conversations, and uncover the science behind anxiety and well-being, all while creating a space where it's okay to not be okay. Let's continue this journey together. Let me ask you something. Would you let your 11 or 12-year-old go to a party at a stranger's house where you don't know the adults, you don't know who the other kids are, no one's supervising, and anyone could come and go as they pleased? Would you feel comfortable knowing that your child might be asked to share personal information, maybe photos, where do you live, where do you go to school, where's your part-time job, where do you play sport, and that they could be sharing all of this with people that they had never met before? Most parents, me included, would say absolutely no way. But in many ways, this is the kind of environment that so many of our kids are finding themselves in. I might say almost all of our kids finding themselves in every single day online. And the biggest mistake that we can make as parents is assuming that because they are safe in our homes, they are safe online. I am not saying this to scare you, but if this does prompt you to take some different action, that's a really good thing, because this should scare us, because the online world can actually be terrifying and very, very dangerous. So whilst I never want to create anxiety in you as a listener, I think it's really good for us to have these conversations, and I've got the most incredible guest that I'm talking with today, Susan McLean. So what we know is, obviously, no question, we've got digital native children who are being born into this technological world. The internet is a huge part of their lives. It brings so many opportunities, but it brings a lot of risks. And what we know, and what my guest today has written about extensively in her brilliant new book, Growing Up Digital, is that their brains are not wired to navigate all of that safely on their own. They might say they can, but they are just not developmentally able to do so. And this makes us anxious. But we don't have to do it alone. And so today I am talking with Susan McLean, who I have worked with before, and I've just read her brilliant new book, Growing Up Digital, Helping Your Kids and Teens Navigate Life Online. She has spent more than 3 decades working in a world of digital safety. She's a former police officer. She helps families understand the risks and giving them practical ways to keep their children safer online. She is the author also of Sex, Texts and Selfies. As I said, a former Victoria police officer. She's worked in the Sex Crimes and Child Abuse Investigation Unit and was one of the first police officers in Australia investigating cybercrime when people were saying, what even is that? And online child exploitation. Today she works with schools, families, and lends her expertise to organisations, and thank goodness you do this, Susan, organisations like Google, Meta, TikTok, Snapchat, Epic Games, Roblox, and more. So, Susan, you're joining us from Hong Kong, where you've been overseas working. Thank you for sharing some of your very, very precious time with us here today on the podcast.
That's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, gosh, there's so much to talk about. One of the things that you have written about and talk about is this perceived anonymity that children kind of feel online, that they can behave in ways that they wouldn't if they were in front of a person. And I have seen that in my own family. I have 2 teenagers myself, and I just think, gosh, that the internet gives children a chance to say things I wouldn't normally say face to face, and it can be quite shocking, and there is no undo button, and the ramifications for people who are on the receiving end of those kinds of messages can be really serious. So that's the first thing, isn't it, that as parents we need to talk to our kids about. There's no anonymity, and we leave a big digital footprint, our kids do.
Yeah, look, most people, adults included, think that if you set yourself up with an account, call yourself a different name, that no one will ever know that you've done this. There is still a large proportion of people that are happy to use their own name and still write revolting things or send revolting comments. But it is that level of disinhibition where we know that people, particularly young people, will say things online They will copy things that they've read before or seen online. They might not even know what these things mean, but they are happy to share them because they believe they will not get into any trouble. They believe that they will not be identified. And of course, that is not the case at all, because whilst I might not know who is behind an account, or you might not know, once this becomes a police matter, and of course, all forms of online abuse are crimes, then the police can quite easily access that information through a legal process by requesting that information from the platforms.
So you can be found.
You
If
can be found. There is really no way to hide. And it does, kids will say, oh, but I use a VPN, or I use incognito mode, or I'm using the dark web and people won't know. And sure, some of these things do make the police's job a little bit harder. But the police have great success. And, as smart as you might think you are as a 14-year-old, they're better than you. You need to understand that.
Yeah, definitely. And you said that it is a crime, and so is taking a naked photo of yourself as a child and sending it.
Yeah, so that's another thing that, we look at these laws, we've got laws. One of the good things in Australia that we have is we have pretty good laws around all these sorts of things. They're not always well used, and that is a whole other conversation. But whilst the laws are there, particularly around the sharing of naked images of people under 18, they were not written to arrest, a silly 15-year-old that shares a nude of themselves with another 15-year-old that was quite happy to receive it. That was not what these laws were written for. They were written to protect children from child sex offenders.
Yeah.
They're tight, they're robust, they're legally sound, and there is almost zero discretion that the police can use, which, if we're dealing with a child sex offender, a pedophile, then that's fine. But when we're dealing with young people who are making an error of judgment rather than engaging in a criminal act, and they are two very different things, and I 100% accept that some children behave criminally, we need better laws. And we are very lucky in Victoria. So if you're listening to this from Victoria, we have options here. I was part of the Law Reform Commission review probably 10 years ago now that looked at how could we better manage this behaviour in children without criminalising them. The other states and territories in Australia and most of the rest of the world, they don't have options. So basically, we're seeing some police having a little bit or exerting a little bit of discretion, but it's not clear. But in Victoria, if the image is shared consensually with no threat, fear, coercion, or further sharing, not more than 2 years age difference between the people, no adult involved, so you can't have an 18 and a 17-year-old,
Yeah.
and no other criminal act in the photo, so it's just a purely and simply nude photo, then the young person doesn't get charged. And I think that is an excellent outcome.
I remember reading those four caveats in your book, and I think, and it's one of these things, isn't it? I have a 15 and a 17-year-old, and it's interesting actually because we're having a conversation. Today is a Friday when we're recording, and just a couple of days ago, I had been reading about a young person who was a victim of sextortion, and I had said we've had those conversations in our home. I have a son who's older and a daughter who's 15, but it was front of mind again because of what I'd seen. And I said to my son, look, I'm about to say something. I'm about to talk about something that we've talked about before. And I know you're going to go, yeah, mum, it's okay. I understand. I'd never do it. But I said, I want to talk to you about this again because it's fresh on my mind. And I just want to share a quick reminder with you. And I had the quick conversation. And he immediately said, yeah, no, it's okay. But he goes, you know what? Thanks, mum. He said, that it's okay. He said, I understand about it. I know about it. And it's not a one and done. And sextortion is something that we can talk about. Maybe we should talk about what that is first and then dive into kind of like, as parents, you can't just sort of talk about these things once, can you? We've got these growing, developing kids who need reminders.
And you can't talk in isolation either. We need to embed these conversations into everyday life because kids don't go online in inverted commas. Like it's not seen the same way as perhaps an adult. Oh, look, we're online now because I've logged onto the internet. To them, it's just a normal part of their daily life, be it in the playground, playing sport, chatting to friends online, playing a game online. It's all the one place. And the sextortion stuff has become far more concerning than it ever was because I took my first report of sextortion in 2009. So it's not a new crime type. But up until about 3 or 4 years ago, it only targeted adults. These offenders who are part of really slick machines, organized criminal gangs, targeted adults, particularly adult males. They've since worked out that kids are easy, that they can make money out of kids. Kids have access to money, 40, 50, $60, $100. So they've shifted their methodology or their practices to target kids. Now, what really bothers me about all of this, there's a lot of things that bother me, is that last year, last January, so January 12 months ago, I started to ask every secondary audience that I spoke to, and that was in 6 different countries last year, the following question. After we had a discussion of sextortion, so they knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Put your hand up if you think that sextortion targets mainly A, teen boys as a victim, or B, teen girls as a victim. And in every single school I visited, every hand went up for girls. And if I had one hand for a boy, that was a big day. And that's wrong
It's wrong.
because the number one target audience for this crime type is a teen boy.
Yeah.
So we are so far behind the eight ball with this, in that the perception out there is it's a girl thing. Now, this doesn't mean that girls can sit back and go, well, I don't need to worry about it, because they do. But when I have across the world almost 100% of teen boys not understanding that they are the target of this, that's really concerning.
They don't have their antenna up. They don't have that raised awareness. They feel like it's not going to
They,
be
they
me.
don't think. And the funny thing is, after I've explained that they're all wrong, then I'll usually pick a couple of boys, usually the lads in the front row, and ask them, why do you think they target boys? Why? And this is the number one answer I get. Boys are stupid.
Right.
So the young boy will tell me the reason he's being targeted is because he's silly and he's a boy and he doesn't think. So that they know that, right? When you talk to them rationally, reasonably, in a calm environment, they have all the answers.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it all goes out the window.
Yeah. And tell us, describe it for a parent or a teacher who or an adult who is listening and this says, well, this sextortion, never heard of it before. Can you please explain what it is and how it unfolds?
Yeah. So there's two main ways it happens. So this is Sextortion 101. So this is the stock standard version of sextortion. Young person is online, they get a random friend request and they accept it. So this is the other thing. Parents will tell me, oh, my kids don't talk to strangers. Yes, they do. I guarantee you that. So they accept this random friend request and they start chatting. And often it gets a bit sexy, it gets flirty, they're paid compliments, you're hot, blah, blah, blah. Then that other account will often send a nude photo to the teen boy and ask for one in return. So they think, oh, why not? What's the harm? I've got one of her. I'll send one back. And they do. And then immediately, within 3 minutes of that happening, the blackmail starts. If you do not pay me this amount of money, I'm going to share this with your family, your friends, your school, and the threats begin.
Yeah.
We have seen young men from around the world take their own lives within an hour of being the victim of sextortion. So this is not something like, I suppose, typical declining mental health that may occur over a period of time where a parent can progressively see something is wrong and perhaps intervene.
Yeah.
I have never seen a crime type in the last 30 years that is tipping previously mentally well young people into crisis as quickly as sextortion. And because these offenders have been accepted as a friend, they have access to your friends list. And they will personalize the threats with things like, I'm going to send it to Tom, I'm going to send it to Sarah, I'm going to send it to Sally, because they have your list of names, because you've invited them in.
Yeah.
So that is stock standard sextortion. But again, the offenders, one step ahead. So they have worked out that there are a proportion of kids that don't send nude photos. So instead of the conversation being sexual, the conversation is general. It is about sport. It is about fashion, just general, things that kids talk about. And then they'll ask for a photo playing sport, or, oh, you bought a new dress, send me the dress, or you bought some jeans, send me a photo of that. or they will use a photo that they've found within the person's account
Yeah.
or the profile picture, and using AI, they'll turn that into a nude photo and they'll use that to blackmail them as well. And it's one of the most important things that young people can do is to ensure that their profile picture is not of them, that it is a non-identifying random photo. Now, this does not mean they won't become the victim of sextortion. It means you are putting one speed bump in the journey.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do is put lots of little speed bumps along the way to make your child less attractive to an offender. Because offenders are lazy,
Yeah.
right? They're lazy. They will go for ease of access.
Yeah.
So if your child's account is locked down, there's no photo there, they don't accept random friend requests, it is highly unlikely that this is going to occur.
And
But it doesn't mean it won't.
it doesn't mean it won't. It's like if you've got your gates locked and your doors locked and you've got a guard dog and you've got all those things in place, they'll a criminal will probably move to the next house, because they're
Correct.
after the low hanging
But
fruit.
they might. It's sort of like the offenders will burgle a house with an open window rather than one with a deadlocked door.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that the next offender won't try to, ram down the door.
That's right.
So this is the reality, and it needs to be reported to the police. We need to encourage this reporting. It is not an issue. Your child will not get into trouble. They are treated as a victim. And I know that a lot of these offenders now are from overseas, and a lot of people and a lot of frontline police will tell families, oh, what do you expect me to do? The offenders overseas. But the police work cooperatively internationally. And just in the paper last week, I think it was, or even this week, was an article about some men in Nigeria that were jailed for the sextortion of a young boy in New South Wales. Now, tragically, that young boy did take his own life and nothing's going to bring him back. But the good thing about the article was showing everyone else that, it is worth going to the police, it is worth telling, because the more information police have about these offenders, the more they can do. And can they arrest some more? No, they can't. But, if there's two in jail, that's two less
Yeah.
that may be out there trying to harm your child.
Yeah.
So we have to look at it from that perspective.
I know as a parent, we want to implore our children not to ever send a nude, not to ever send anything and to engage. But we also need to know that we have to balance that with, if they do, they need to know it is not the end of the world. It might feel that way. And so balancing, I've talked with my friends about this, and my perspective was we want to kind of say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But if you do it, come to talk to me, and we can sort it out together.
And we need that. In a perfect world, kids wouldn't send nudes. They wouldn't be blackmailed. They wouldn't have their trust betrayed by someone they thought they knew and liked. But we're not in a perfect world. So there's nothing wrong with talking to your kids about, why this is not a good idea and what can happen and what will go wrong, because it will always go wrong. There is no way out of this. But if something happens, and really, I don't care what the something is, they need to come and tell you about it. They need to ask for help. They need to know they can be listened to, understood, empathized with, sympathized with, and that they won't get into any trouble. Because we know the biggest barrier for young people getting help is their reluctance to ask for it. And there will be shame and there will be embarrassment, and they will beat themselves up about, how could I be so stupid? And all those really normal reactions, but can be quite catastrophic for young people. And what I know with the sextortion, and I have this reported to me every single week, I have a family or a student that reaches out. What I've seen as a pattern is most young people will pay two amounts of money before they tell an adult. Right. Because the first threat is, if you pay $50 or $100, the problem will go away. So they think, oh, that seems fair. Yeah. So they do. And of course, it doesn't go away. So then they're told, well, hang on a minute. Okay, fair enough. I said I'd delete it, but you know what? $50 more and I'm gone. So they believe that and they pay that. And then finally the penny drops where they realize it's not going away, and they need to reach out for help. And the thing I always say to parents as well is, I don't want your children to, take on the problems of the world. I don't want them to take on all the problems of all their friends, because that is not mentally healthy or anything like that. But we need young people to be a good friend to each other
Yeah.
and to be brave. And if they hear about this, see it, and it involves a friend, please tell an adult. You're not getting your friend in trouble. It's not dibber-dobbing, but we need adults in there supporting young people as they navigate their way through this.
Yes, we absolutely do. It's so interesting hearing what you learn when you speak to young people. What has surprised you the most about the lack of understanding that a lot of teenagers have about the online world?
It's their own experiences. And it's like anything in life. You often base opinions about things, about risk and danger, based on what you experience yourself, what you've been exposed to, et cetera, et cetera. So if they've predominantly had a sunshine and happiness experience on the internet, which the vast majority of children do have, by the way, they're not really going to be thinking about the bad things. They don't have a suspicious mind. And one of the things that makes children a prime target for sextortion and grooming, online child exploitation, is that they are inherently trusting. That if someone is nice to them, their little brain says, "Oh, this is a nice person. I can be nice back because they are now my friend." So it is absolutely vital that parents have tricky conversations with their children, particularly around the harms. And I start these conversations in grade 3. There's nothing to say. I mean, they should be had earlier. I just firmly believe that the class teacher is equipped enough to manage it up until grade 3.
Yeah.
But, the way I speak to grade 3s is vastly different to the way I speak to year 12s. And, there is always a way that you can have a tricky conversation with a child that starts to educate them. It's not about scaring them. And, they might find what you say scary, and that's fine, but it's not about scaring them per se. They need to understand, and most parents will have had the conversation about don't talk to people down the street that you don't know, don't go off without me, make sure there's an adult with you when you go to the park. So all those basic safety statements that are made every single day in every single household need to have an online component. Because when I ask children, how would you know if a predator was talking to you or what would you look for? The number one reply I get is, oh, it would be an old man in a white van, a lollipop, and a puppy dog.
Oh, gosh.
And when I say, but yeah, I'm talking about in Roblox chat, how does that work? They can't answer it. No. The other one I get is, oh, no, I'd keep away from them because it's a really weird looking person that sort of hides in the bushes at the sport field. And, we know it's not, right? It might be, but it probably isn't because that person is drawing attention to themselves and these people don't want to do that.
Yes.
So they hide in plain sight and they're nice and they're kind and they pay compliments and they do every single thing to build a level of trust and relationship with a child. And it's hard, children grow up in a beautiful little bubble until they sort of hit school and that often bursts. But we have to make sure that children understand that just as the world is full of mostly good people, there are some bad people. And those bad people are in real life and they are on the internet as well. And they will be where you are.
Yes.
So that's why we have to talk about it. And if someone makes you scared or worried or concerned, you can come and tell me about it and I'll help you.
Yeah. Oh, Susan, I feel like we've just started. Would you stay around to record a second part to this episode? Oh, amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I don't
so
have
much.
to be asked twice.
Sensational. If you are listening and wanting to learn more about how you as a parent can understand the online world from somebody who travels the world and is a global expert, then Susan's book, Growing Up Digital, Helping Your Kids and Teens Navigate Life Online, is such a brilliant resource. I've got dog-eared pages and highlights throughout. So, Susan, where can people grab a copy of the book?
So there's a link on my website, cybersafetysolutions.com, or Cyber Safety Solutions. If you Google that or Google my name, you'll find it. So there's a buy the book here. It's in all good bookstores. I've been taking plenty of snaps as I've travelled around the world, seeing it in bookstores, which is very exciting. Yeah. It's a pinch me money.
Yeah.
You can get it on Booktopia. You can get it on Amazon. So lots of places that you can get it, via my website, all good bookstores or online.
Fantastic. Susan, thank you so much. You've given us so much to think about and to do. Thank you so much, Susan, and thank you for listening. Join us for part 2 next Wednesday when we drop that new episode. Thanks, Susan. I'll see you shortly.
Bye.
Thank you for sharing this time with me on, well, hello, anxiety. Remember, understanding anxiety is the first step to managing it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take things one moment at a time. Focus on what you can control and know that you are not alone on this journey. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and I'll meet you right back here next week. Your child or teen's anxiety doesn't come with a guidebook, but this comes close. I created the Anxiety Toolkit for Parents, a 70-card deck to support parents of anxious children and teens. These cards help you understand what's at the heart of anxiety, how it shows up for your child, explore calming strategies that work, and learn what truly helps and why. You can think of these cards as my help in the palm of your hand. Find your deck at drjodirichardson.com.